All
This
right,
meeting is
what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Best Self Blueprint. So, as you all know, the mission of this podcast is to bring on people with the knowledge, the insights, and the experiences that help you move that dial. There we go, towards becoming the best version of yourself, whatever that means for you in your life. So today we've got the real Zach Morris. How you doing, man?
Great, brother. I'm great. How are you?
I am good. So one thing that we have in common is that last weekend or whenever it was, sometime recently, we both
Yeah.
took on the David Goggins 4x4x48 challenge. So a lot of people listening have probably already heard me talk about this, but for those of you who don't know, this is doing a 4 mile run every 4 hours for 2 days straight. So 48 hours straight. Now, we both have done it previously, so we kind of knew what we were getting ourselves into. For me, it was very much about coming back with a vengeance. The first time left a very bitter taste in my mouth. You had a really interesting reason for doing it this time, which was inspiring other people and showing them what's truly possible. So if you could talk about that, I think that would be something that'll shine a light on taking on tough tasks for people.
For sure. Well, I mean, the first go around when I did it last year, right? It was on a whim last minute. My friend who's runs ultra marathons was about to do the challenge. He had it planned for a couple of weeks, and last minute he said, "Run it with me." And 2 days before I said, "Let's go." Ill prepared, all that. And since then, that at that point it was I want to prove to myself that I can handle it. It's like whatever you do, if you have a goal, you're gonna stop at nothing to achieve it. And so just, I mean, putting yourself in that situation to get through it was that first reason for me the first time. But then as I've transitioned into being a coach full time, it's more like your bigger purpose, right? What are you going to give back? What are you going to leave out there? It's not always about me. I mean, social media, and when you post that stuff, it can make it seem like it's all about you. You want to show your feats, stuff you've accomplished. But I wanted to let people know I've, had a lot of great clients who trained with me, and giving back to them that kind of aspect of, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but when I'm in those situations, I love my mindset. And I know if other people had that they could take their life to the next level. So I want to try to give that back in any way possible. So I would try to have everybody come join me on separate legs of the runs, just to come and like feel the energy of like, me being in it. And then they would feel like they're a part of it. And then I had multiple people say, "Dude, this is rad. I love this. Next year, I'm going to do it 100%. So having that was a big part for me.
Yeah, so I did a pretty similar thing. So I had a few clients who I knew were looking to get into running, and I basically said, "All right, first weekend in March, you're going to be running 4 miles, so let's get you ready for that." And I love that feeling of everyone's at their own point. And I think what you're talking about is it's less feeling perfect and more feeling unstoppable. Because I feel like once you really you train and you prepare, and it's like you're like a warrior going into battle at that point in its own respect. And then you add that level of camaraderie where now you've got people who care about you, who respect you, who are now coming into that world and going through their own battle. It's just such a uniquely beautiful experience to have that feeling of, I know you're struggling, I'm struggling, but I'm not going to give up, so you better not give up, kind of thing.
Like looking at each other, I'm like, I got you, you got me. There's no way we're going to let up on this. And I mean, that's a big part of the fitness community, or at least it should be. And I hope it continues in that direction. I mean, a lot of the stuff can be selfish when people view it from the outside, but I think that's my favorite part about the, community of fitness is going through that stuff together and, feeding off the energy of others and, trying to build those achievements together. I mean, you can't do anything in life without a strong support system. And then if you're able to translate that into your fitness world, it makes all the difference.
Yeah, and that's something too, like what you're talking about with making sure that you not only have a support system, even if it's not people who are doing the runs with you, people who the weeks leading up to it, if they're going out and partying and you say, "Hey, no, like I got this thing that I got to be ready for." It's not people who are like, I call it the bucket of crabs people, who once one crab tries to crawl out, the other ones pull it back down.
Yep.
It's people who are going to lift you up and say, hey, we support you. You do what you got to do. Anything you need from us, let me know. I think that's so important. Now, in terms of inspiring other people, this is something that I actually am really passionate about. So I do a lot of obstacle course racing, a lot of these fitness challenges, things like that. And the reason that I stay in these communities is because growing up, I always played sports where it was, in order for you to win, they have to lose. And in these environments now, I'm in a community where the better the competition is, the more encouraging it is for you. It's not this if or situation. It's, I want you to get better so that you push me to get better, and we support each other along the way. And I think luckily that's shifting, but I still think there are a lot of people who need to hear, like, you don't need to beat other people to feel like you win. And I think a big piece of that is setting up these challenges where it's you against you. And you've done a really good job of talking about the mental callousing that you've done and the mental preparation and things that you've built just with your psychology and your mentality. What are a few of those key things that you did, whether in training or just in life, that help you build up that mental toughness?
I mean, a lot of it is learning, experiencing, always looking for new information that can help you, whether it's, reading new books, meditating. A lot of it started with that, honestly. Giving yourself some time, in the start of the day to just be able to focus, put yourself in that 10, 15, 20 minutes a day where you're able to control your mind a little bit. You're like, we're going to sit here, we're going to focus on this one thing, or not focus on anything at all. It doesn't matter. Either one is both forms of meditation, right? But I think it starts with that, and then you slowly increment and build yourself up. I mean, whether it's going for a 1 mile run a day, and you leave yourself no negotiations to turn that off. But fitness goes a lot further than just the physical aspect of it. And to me, I don't think there's any real purpose of it if you don't have that mental aspect to it too. So being able to inspire yourself in those tough situations when you're going through it, knowing that you have your back and there's nothing that you won't be able to get through, it's huge. So learning, listening podcasts like this, right? You interview other people in the sector who are, been through stuff, have great value to offer other people. So learning from those people, right? I mean, like, all the best self-help books are from people who have researched and interviewed the most successful people in the world. So if you're able to, like, mirror those characteristics that they have, ultimately it's a formula for success, or to callous your mind and to be strong. So
Yeah, and I feel like one word that you said that really stands out to me is, like, it is really important to learn as much as you can and to put yourself in the shoes of people who have done the things that you want to do. But the word experience stands out. Like, if you really want to build mental callousing and mental toughness, you develop the skill set through the learning and the knowledge, but you actually get the, like, not physical callousing on your brain. I don't think that would be good at all, but that callousing of the brain and that mental fortitude comes from just being in it and experiencing it. And so I think in order for people to really be able to level up their mental toughness and ability to handle stressful situations, they need to do it in a controlled setting. Like, for me, and it sounds like for you, the main thing is doing hard fitness challenges or doing things that put you way out of your comfort zone, so that you get accustomed to that feeling of being in the discomfort. And how comfortable can you get just knowing that that's not going anywhere?
For sure. And a big part of it is envisioning yourself in the moment, right? Like, everyone talks about visualization, right? To be at a great point in your life, to be sitting in the house you want, be driving the car you want with the family, the house, and how you feel in that moment. But it's not always only focus on the good things. I mean, in order to be just as strong on both ends, you have to visualize yourself, you know, in those shitty moments where you're hurting and you're tough, but then you picture yourself, you know, keep pushing another mile, or, you know, keep working. It doesn't matter what it is in life, but not only to visualize yourself in the good moments, but in the bad, and knowing that, and then see yourself in those moments and pushing through it. And then when those times come, it's like you've been there before.
Dude, yeah, that's actually really powerful because I feel like people who practice visualization, they typically only visualize what goes right.
Right.
And so as soon as something goes wrong, they're like, oh shit, I don't know what to do because they only practiced
The whole
and
plan's derailed.
yeah, they only rehearsed the perfect scenario. And although that is powerful, I think it's just as powerful to spend time visualizing if something doesn't go according to plan, how do you handle that? So, like for me, one of my biggest affirmations of this was I was doing a 100 obstacle marathon, and that was when I was really deep into doing visualizations. And I was picturing if, you know, I tweak my leg, or if, you know, I fall off an obstacle and hurt my wrist or something like that, how do I keep pushing? Because I know once that race starts, aside from like knocking myself out cold, there's no way I'm not crossing the finish line. And sure enough, on mile, I want to say 11 or 12, I got a really serious strain in my quad, which, you know, for anyone who knows what a quad is and does for running, it's not an insignificant thing. But again, it was one of those things where I had basically rehearsed that. So I just thought about, okay, how can I keep going so that I just get to that finish line? It may not be at like a record pace. It may not be the level that I would feel fulfilled if I was healthy. But at this point, you just need to keep taking that step. And that was one of the best things I heard you talk about in your recap of the 48 was anyone can do it as long as they focus on one step at a time, 1 mile at a time. And it's that mentality of just sitting with where you're at and making the most of that moment that creates these huge waves.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to the support system thing, having those people there and cheer you on, and knowing when you cross the finish line. I mean, you're not doing it for anyone else, but to have that encouragement and, you know, that drive to see you inspire other people, to see how they're affected, you know, to see like kind of the look on their face once you do it. And when you're in that moment, you have that energy of accomplishing it, and they could feel it. People recognize that, and it inspires them. And ultimately, I mean, when that happened, you know, on Sunday when we finished the run, I did a little bit earlier, so I finished around like 8 a.m. But we had a big group of friends come down for brunch down in Manhattan Beach, and you know, they all asked me to get up and give a speech, and then when I had everyone just looking at me, right, and feel the energy, and one of my friends told me right before, he was like, dude, no way I could do that. I'm like, yeah, of course you can. Like that's the whole point of it in the first place, is you keep like one step at a time, you know, 1 mile at a time, and you find your way. It doesn't matter if it's fine if you got to slow down. Just because you have to slow down and walk for a second, recollect, it doesn't mean it's a failure. You know, if you're trying to push a crazy pace and run everyone in the sevens, just because you have to slow down and walk for a second, by any means, it doesn't mean it's a failure. You slow down, collect your thoughts, and then you keep going.
Yeah, man, that's huge. Now, one other thing that I love that you talk about, and this is something just 2 hours ago, I was having a conversation about this, is really leveraging intuition and faith. I think that's something, and it sounds like, I mean, you stepped into coaching full time, you've built the Morris movement now, you're doing these athletic challenges, you're inspiring clients. Something tells me the decisions that you've made have had a high amount of faith and leaning into that intuitive feeling. What's your take on that? Like what does it feel like to lean into the faith and lean into the intuition? What can people expect when they do that? What's been your experience around that?
Well, I think with anything you do in life, you have to have a bigger purpose, right? It can't all be about you and your personal success. I mean, it's a big goal, and of course everybody wants that. But at the end of the day, what matters really more is why you're doing something, what you're going to give back, the overall lessons you may learn from it, and be able to share that with other people. And it's like when you're in those tough moments, if all you have to is like, yes, I'm going to look so good after these runs, or like people are going to be like, wow, he did it, just because you want them to think you're a savage in some aspect or something. But having a deeper reason to go through anything gives you all you need to keep going. And I mean, I grew up in a Christian household, so we would go to church growing up. And I always believed in God, but I've transitioned that into my own spiritual religion, basically. And I always believe there's a higher purpose. I believe everything happens for a reason. And at the end of the day, all you really have is you. So when it comes to intuition, especially with social media being so pervasive, you're always seeing, scroll a new mindset, scroll a new, perspective, or, hard pressing opinions. To be able to truly trust your gut and instinct in any moment is one of the biggest keys I think any person can have in life. It might not always be the right thing, but at least it's true to you. And ultimately, it will lead you in the right direction, regardless if it puts you in a tougher situation or in the better situation. When you look at the long trajectory of it down the road, years, that will most likely always be your best decision you could have made in the moment, is trusting yourself, trusting your intuition. And the only way you can get there is by practicing it, right?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, oh man. My favorite part about that is it may not actually be like the best decision, but it's what it'll make you feel the best about the decision you made. You'll never feel, if you lean into what someone else is telling you and it doesn't feel right, but you do it anyways and it doesn't pan out, then you're going to feel like garbage. But if it's this gut feeling and you really go all in and it doesn't pan out, at least you were staying true to yourself and who you authentically are, as opposed to buying into some narrative that has nothing to do with who you actually are or what you actually represent. So I think that's phenomenal. Now I want to tie this into, because you've had a good amount of success with your clients. Your business is popping off after what, 5-6 months. You're leveling up in a lot of different areas really quickly. For someone, everyone wants to be successful. I think that's just plain and simple. Now, success is different based on what individual you ask and what their parameters are for it. But for someone who is super ambitious and wants to experience high levels of success and keep leveling up in life, what have you found to be the commonalities when leveling up? So like for me, the thing that I noticed is ego gets in the way. So like imposter syndrome might start setting in, or I'll do things subconsciously to trip myself up right before I'm about to have a big breakthrough of success. What are some common themes you've seen as you hit new benchmarks and levels of success, and how did you overcome them?
I think one of the main ones I've learned as I was a talent agent for about 4 or 5 years, in Hollywood. So it was a completely different scene, completely different kind of workflow, different communication with clients and whatnot. And so when I transitioned into fitness, I always knew I could do it, but there was always that point about myself where I need to accomplish something in order for me to feel truthful about it, or to feel like I'm really that person. So I think stepping into your role with, absolute faith and knowing that's where you're supposed to be is a huge one. And once you follow that and you step into your role, it's your passion, it's exactly what you want to do in life, then people will feel off that. And it's tough to make that jump. I had a secure paycheck. I had a great salary, all this stuff, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't fulfilling me. I mean, I had quite a few great relationships within it, but I was envisioning myself, 10, 15 years down the line and saying, is this what I want to do in life? Like, am I going to be in a position to fulfill what I think my purpose is? And, I think of myself as a leader. And like you said, talking about back to sports, like that camaraderie and being able to accomplish things with people and have a community is everything to me. So I thought this was actually where I could make my greatest strides, make the greatest impact. But ultimately, it just came down to making a decision for myself, choosing myself over any expectation, anything that I had been led to believe up to that point. And once I made the jump, and I truly stepped into my role, I felt like I had imposter syndrome for a little while, because I started training people a little bit before I had my certification. I've been, working out and doing fitness for, 12 plus years since I was, like 8th grade or like a freshman in high school. But still, none of that really matters until you see the people you train grow and you receive that good feedback. So, yeah, I mean, just being able to commit to yourself and in those moments, even when you're down, knowing that there's at some point going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, and just keeping the faith that everything's going to work out for the greater good for you, is huge.
Yeah. What you just explained is the reason for me doing this show. So you were talking about, even if you're making good money, even if you can see a path to, the promotion, the job, the whatever, if thinking about that doesn't light you up, get the fuck out of Dodge. Like, that is the
100%.
easiest way for me to say it. Like,
Waste no more time.
yeah, and that's exactly it. So if you ask just about anybody, what's the more valuable resource, time or money? Inevitably, people will say time. They'd rather have more time on this planet than more money in their bank account. And yet people trade their more valuable resource for their less valuable resource by giving up time that they could enjoy doing something for money that doesn't even feel good to make. And so for people listening, I want you to really think about that. Like, think about how he talks about fitness, how he talks about what he's doing now. It lights him up. And that's because he had the conviction to step into his intuition and to keep faith that leaning on that intuition in the long run will pan out. That's something that I talk about all the time on the show, is you need to live in accordance with who you really are and not who you think you should be to meet some expectation of someone who, quite frankly, probably doesn't care nearly enough about you to be justifying making that big decision in your life. And so I really appreciate you saying that.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. And just because that I felt that it was my true passion and my true calling to coach and train people and build this community, doesn't make the decision to leave any easier. It's like, regardless, it's going to be respective to each and every person. It's never going to be an easy decision, regardless if it's deep down, when it is you're trusting your intuition, it doesn't make the decision any easier, being able to leave. And that, I think that's when the beginning of making like hard decisions and putting yourself in a tough situation is the beginning of a whole new chapter in your life begins.
Well, I think that's exactly it, right? Like, the reason it is so tough is because I think of it, so like, my perception of the human experience is that in order to really like be successful and fulfilled and happy, you need to go through tests and you need to go through challenges. And I think one of the tests, especially modern day, with how loud and noisy social norms are, one of the big like roadblocks or potential roadblocks for living an authentic life that also brings with it the level of success you want, is being willing to go against the grain and make that jump, not even knowing whether or not it's going to work out. Now, I think inevitably we have enough resources with YouTube, with audiobooks, with successful people around us, that there's almost nothing you can't be successful at if you actually put in the time to figure it out. But that's a whole other story. But yeah, I absolutely love that you said that, because I just think that's something everyone needs to hear right now, is especially with how much fear is just floating around the entire world right now. It's so easy to just want to focus on what makes you feel safe and comfortable. And I think a sense of security is amazing, and there's definitely a place for it. But you need to think about, what do you want? If your life is a book or a movie in its entirety, what do you want that to look like? Where are you
Right.
at right now? And is that in alignment with the book that you're writing for your life? If not, you got to start flipping the page and get to a better chapter real quick.
Right. And which made me just think of a lot of the times when people start to invest a lot of time into something, they feel like they owe it to that thing or that profession to stay in it for the long run. And that's not always the case. I mean, you know, I went to college and got my degree, you know, in business, just because I thought that's what I wanted to do or what I should do. And ultimately it's playing its role out now. But I felt like I owed it to myself to go work, you know, a corporate job, or, you know, be on a salary and have, you know, benefits, and to be in that world, just because I had put so much time and effort and money into it up until that point. So I felt like I'd be doing myself a disservice to jumping ship at that point, you know, after college. And I was at the talent agency for 5 years. I was like, well, I've gone this far now. Why would I change? You know, is that wasted time if I leave? But you're doing yourself a disservice by staying in it, you know, any longer.
Dude, yes. This is so important. I just, there are so many people. So I'm 24, week away from being 25. So I'm at that age where a lot of my
Early
friends,
birthday.
hey, thank you. Yeah. So like a lot of my friends who, because I didn't get a 4-year degree. I started, and then I realized very quickly that based on what I wanted to do in my life, that just wasn't even necessary. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of my friends, very smart people, very wise, very intelligent, they're a few years out of getting their degree, they're in their job, and I can visibly see the life just getting sucked out of them.
Yeah.
And it's the same people who they work Monday through Friday at a job that just drains them, and then they spend Friday night and all day Saturday drunk. So in my opinion, they can just escape that feeling of lifelessness. Now,
Yeah.
I think their ego will jump in and justify, oh no, I like drinking, it's fun and all that. And it is, there's a time for drinking and celebration and all that. But if that's like your escape from your actual real life, I think you've got a big problem that needs fixing real quick.
For sure. And I was in that position too when I was, you know, in the agency world. And a big part of living in Los Angeles is, you know, networking and socializing and whatnot. And I would have, you know, those big weekends too, where I was, you know, drinking and partying, you know, Friday, Saturday. And then, you know, come Monday, I felt like I was back to square one. And I felt like, I mean, during the week, you know, I feel like I was making good progress. I was working hard, you know, signing new clients and all that. But then it's like, you do that to yourself, and you're not staying true to yourself through the weekend. And being consistent on the weekend is one of the biggest things that you can do for yourself, because keeping that momentum going, right, is everything. You don't want to start Monday feeling like you're back on square one. You have to pick up everything that you had last week. I mean, if you're able to keep that going through, I mean, I honestly think it would make leaps and bounds for whatever it is you do.
Yeah,
But try not to escape.
man, there's so much I could go into with this. I do just want to let people know too, if you did get a 4-year degree, I'm not saying just like jump ship right away. I think it's very easy to misconstrue what my last message was. My main focus is, if you're consistently showing up to a place more than 20 hours a week that you have no actual emotional joy attached to or fulfillment attached to, that's where I think it's very important that you stop doing that thing. and start focusing on developing the areas of your life that will really fulfill you. Now, obviously, I call it, you got to eat your broccoli every once in a while. There's going to be things that you don't want to do that you have to do if you really are serious about cultivating a great story, a great level of success, a great lifestyle. But for the most part, those should be things that still light you up, even if they aren't immediately joyful in the moment. Like this 48, that second to last run at 4 a.m. when it's cold and you just want to sleep, that's not joyful by any means, but it's super fulfilling because you know that while everyone else is comfy and asleep in their bed, you're now 44 miles deep into a gruesome challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that 4 a.m. run, my second to last one, I was out there. It was windy. There was like 15 to like 20 mile per hour winds. And I was like running uphill and I had my sweatshirt and beanie on, it's freezing outside. But at a certain point, throughout every run, I always made it a point to catch myself one time smiling to myself, saying, I'm really out here. I'm doing this, like, enjoy it. But then at that 4 a.m., I was out there, on Sepulveda in Manhattan Beach, and I was screaming on my run. I was like, let's go, screaming out, cars driving by, they're like, who is this nutcase? But being able to like hype yourself up in that moment is huge. And then back to your point, it's not about the college degree thing. It's not like it is a waste of time. Just because you're leaving and gonna transition into something else doesn't mean you're wasting your degree. You'll find a way to make that relevant in the next thing that you're gonna have going for you. Nothing is ever a waste. It's always, meant to lead you where you're supposed to be, and you'll find new ways to make it happen. I've, built a lot of tools when I was at the agency and when I went to school that are paying its dividends right now in my personal training business. So it's not like anything you do for too long is not going to matter in your next purpose in life, in your next challenge and in your next, path you decide to take. Everything will see its way through, and ultimately it all leads you where you're supposed to go. So I think everything you go through in life, regardless if you think it's a waste or not, or I can't do this because I've spent so much time, so much money, it will see its way through, and ultimately it will still add a value no matter what you do in life, because it was a part of you and part of your journey.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, right? I think the reason people think it'll be a waste is because they don't see the application of that invested time, money, effort, whatever, translating into what's next. But I can guarantee you that you learned some lesson or met some person or did something that will directly translate and add benefit to whatever's next for you in your story. So I absolutely love that.
Yeah, and if not, the biggest thing you learn from it is knowing that you can let go of something that you've put a lot of time and effort to. I mean, regardless if you take anything with you, knowing you can make big decisions like that could be, the value in itself, knowing that you spend a lot of time. It's like a breakup with somebody, or, losing a friend after so long. It's so hard to envision them not being in your life, but if they're not serving you in your life and your purpose and making you a better person, then there's no point in holding on to it. So, I mean, back to the job thing, it's the same idea. Even making the decision to let it go yourself could be all the value you need and the lesson you learn.
I was just gonna say breakups and losing friends. I was like, I had that locked and loaded in the chamber, and it's so true. It's one of those things that you feel loyal to something that's toxic to you. I mean, if you leverage your emotional self in that situation, you'll think about all of the memories and all of the time invested and all of that. But logically speaking, that's like drinking poison, setting it down on the table, and then thinking, well, I already had some, so I might as well just keep drinking it, and then drinking more poison. It's like, it's not going to get better because you've already invested time in something that, like you said, no longer serves you. And maybe at one point it did. Maybe at one point it was the right fit. It was a healthy relationship, job, whatever. But over time, and as you evolve as a person and as the world evolves and all that, it can shift from healthy to toxic. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that to yourself and to whoever else.
Yeah. Amen.
Heck yeah, man. All right. So we will start to wrap up a little bit here. One thing I'm curious about, do you have any other projects lined up that you want to do? I know you were brainstorming a little bit.
Well, I got a couple. One thing, or a few things. I think my next one lined up is going to be a pull-up challenge. I'm not sure if it's going to be 12 or 24 hours. I got to decide on that. But we're going to go, starting now, 12-hour pull-up challenge. I'm going to aim for about 1,500 pull-ups. And we'll see how far we get. But I'm going to be training for that in the next couple of weeks. And then hopefully, I have a crazy April coming up. But I think probably end of April, I'll be doing that. And then I got a marathon that I'm going to be doing in a couple of weeks too. So I got those, and then I'm working with a new online coaching team. So I'm expanding my online coaching business, which is huge for me. So that's more of a personal project. But yeah, those are a couple things.
Dude, that pull-up one is going to be gnarly. I'm doing this thing called the Wolverine challenge, which is you have a whole year to do 10 just brutally hard workouts. And one of them is 500 pull-ups as fast as you can do them. And like, there are things that were sore from that I never would have thought. Like my calves from jumping up to the bar, my abs were sore from just holding the position. So yeah, I commend you for taking
you already did it. You knocked out the 500.
Got the 500, yeah. And they looked very ugly at the end. We'll say that. I got a video of the first two.
Like this CrossFitters butterfly pull-ups.
Yeah, so. No, I will never do that. That would be unacceptable. I wouldn't count it. But yeah, man, sounds like you got some cool things going on. So I have one last question that I always ask people. So for you right now in your life, what's the next step in you becoming your best self?
Man, I gotta say, I feel so aligned with everything in my life right now. I think I feel energy on a daily basis from the fulfillment I'm getting from what I'm doing, how I'm challenging myself, how I'm challenging the people around me, and I'm seeing other people react to the things I'm accomplishing in a great way. And that's the most important thing for me. So I think just continue to step into this role. It's easy. We just finished the 4x48 challenge. And after you get done with that, you feel great. You're like, I'm going to keep this momentum going. And then a week goes by, 2 weeks go by, and then you kind of find yourself maybe getting back into the routine or the rhythm of your typical workouts. So every month, I'm going to be having one big challenge that I hold myself to, I hold myself accountable for, to make sure that I don't let up on myself and the growth that I'm making, you know, as a trainer, as a human. And then within little things, you know, reading and meditating every morning, visualizing exactly where you want to go is huge. And just reflecting back on your purpose and what you want to give back to yourself and people around you, the world, every day, and trying to live out your mission is everything. So yeah, man, just keep going, just keep on the track of pushing yourself to the absolute limit, and you know, connecting with great people like yourself who are trying to help people get better too, and put stuff out there that, you know, will continue to inspire and hopefully help people out.
Yeah, that is the best feeling in the world, when the answer to what's next is do what I'm doing on a bigger scale. That's the coolest feeling in the world, when you get to the point where you're doing everything you want to be doing. Now you just want to do it more and bigger. So that's huge, man. I respect you for that. I respect everything that you're doing, all the things that you're building, the inspiration you're giving people in your community. So I appreciate you taking the time coming on, spitting some wisdom.
I appreciate it. And I got to give you a quick shout out, because I know at the end of the 4x48, you put in an extra 2 and got that 50.
Yeah. Thank
Which
you.
was something that I had on my mind. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go an extra 2 at the end. But by the end of it, I was just like, you know what, this is it. I'm done. I'm calling it. So I saw you post that, and I was like, my man,
Thank you.
props
Yeah,
to
it
you.
was actually I didn't decide that till the 24-hour mark. I was talking to another coach and I was like, I like this idea of like doing one more rep, doing one more set. I'm like, I'm gonna do one more mile at the end. He's like, well, 49 is not a fun number. If you're gonna do one more, you got to do two more and make it 50. I'm like, all right, can't argue with that logic. I guess we're doing two more.
Yeah, right. And
So,
that's one of the best parts. Last one. Once that thought comes in your mind, you're like, that's it.
yep.
You're like, if he tells you 50, and then if you finish 48 and didn't go, you'd be like, oh shit. Like, there's, I gotta get 50 now. There's no choice.
Yeah. And it was just, it was one of those things like leave no doubt. So like the first time when I got done with this, I got it handed to me by this challenge. So to go
Yeah,
out on top and then throw an extra 2 miles in its face, I was like, all right, that's a good way to do it. So yeah,
conquered it.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course, man.
Well, thanks for coming on. Everybody who listens and tunes in, thank you for listening. If you like this video, anything we talked about, hit the like button. If you have questions or comments about anything we talked about, throw them in the comments. And then I know for an absolute fact, someone who could benefit from this talk. So go ahead and share it with friends, family, some random dude on the street, whoever you can share it with. So thank you, everybody. And we will catch you next
Thanks,
time.
y'all. Appreciate you, brother.
You
Keep doing
too.
your thing.